Hey, this is my first Kerbal Space Program video. I'm currently going to do a voiceover for this because I did a pre-recording of me actually building and then flying the vessel. Now, we're going to see how this goes because this is my first time doing it. So, here, I chose to use a probe instead of a um, cockpit for this because it's going to be a satellite. And this is sped up almost 2 times as fast because I take forever to build. Yeah, because I want to figure it out and put stuff in the right spot and make it look good. So I've got 2 passenger cabins on here, so I can have some dudes up in space doing their thing while I've got a comm array up there. And I think you'll like this one. I use these RCS thrusters, these linear ports, because they provide more thrust than the multiple nozzle ported ones. And here, I needed a forward and backward thrust, so I put these down here and figured that would work for my forward, and I just copied them, brought them up, and I forgot where it was, and had to go back down and look, and just place them there, the opposite way. There we go, we have our RCS thrusters. Now, I also had forgot to put a stability module, or a stability control module on here. So I had to put a couple of those in there really quick in case I ever need to make some maneuvers. Now I'm putting on a docking port, so that way I can ferry people on or off the station, or the comm array. So and here comes the technical stuff. I'm putting these hinges on so I can add the satellites themselves and have them be able to collapse and come back down for the flight up. It took me a moment to figure out where to put them. I decided to place them there in the end because I thought it looked okay. And then I come over here and I grab the... That's funny. I forgot to extend those. When the flight was done, I forgot to extend the pistons and put my satellites out there, or my radar dishes. And you'll see later in the flight where I had incorrectly did some programming on the hinge motors and the other motors that you will see here shortly that I put on. It's been a while since I played Kerbal, so I had to remember how everything worked. But this game is fascinating. I can always come back to it and build something cool and throw it up there in space, or see if it crashes and burns. But we don't want none of that. So I wanted to go with these at first, but they ended up being too big. And getting them placed directly in the center is quite difficult sometimes. So I decided to go with the next size smaller. Because, you know, they look cool. I like them. As you can see here, I was having trouble getting them centered, and then I figured it out. If I look at it this way and go directly towards the center of that circle, they're pretty much in the center all the way around. Now I'm choosing where these will sit in flight, so that way they are not just flopping around. I put them down because the G-forces are going to be pulling down because we're going up so fast. At least that's how my thought process went. And in here, I hit motorized, which I should not have hit that. I should have left the motorized, because that added complications later in flight. In the programming here for my custom actions, the 1, 2, 3, 1 through 9 key, 1 through 0 keys, is where I could put those. So if I hit 1, that what I just clicked and told it to do will happen. and I got confused here on the motors because it's been a while since I used them. And now I came to the part where I needed power for the vessel, so I was thinking I should use solar panels, because those also look cool. And these ones I thought were too tiny for the size of the vessel, so I decided to go with these and add a few more of them. And then I realized I was covering a crew hatch, so I had to find another spot to put them, which took me about 10 minutes. I sat there and scrolled up and down on it like that, just thinking, like, where can I put these? Then I decided, yeah, they're gonna go up there. And it's a good spot for them. And then I came down here and I realized on the bottom I had no way to connect it to the launch part of the craft, so I had decided to put another docking port on the bottom, because why not? And then I thought, oh, I might want to add some modules to this later on. Send them up, rendezvous, and dock them with each other. But that made me move those again, which I thought that was a decent spot for them. So I come down here and I wanted to try using this as another docking port, but these can be kind of difficult to place on a round structure instead of the end like the other docking ports. So I tried, I got it to come there, and see how it's clipping through into the other structure. I didn't like how it looked, so I tried to move it just a little bit, and it still didn't look right to me on the side, so I decided to just get rid of them and go with the inflatable airlock that you see here. And little mistake, come over here, replace it. Boom. Nice. So here, start moving it up because I'm getting ready to build the launch structure. Get that out of my way so I can see. Nope. Too big. So came back in. That's the right size. Let's go for the better model. Bam. Threw it on there. And now, gotta go over here into payload. That wasn't big enough, so I decided to go with the biggest one. And now creating the fairing, making it look nice at the same time. So try to widen it out a little bit, bring it up, and it was still just barely touching the satellite dishes. So I decided to recreate the whole fairing again. Bring it down, and I brought it out. Plenty of room this time. And I thought it looked nice. Excuse me. Making the ejection force 40 instead of 100 so it doesn't just shoot off of it, because that doesn't look scale realistic. I thought the silver one was nice, but I eventually ended up going with just the good old black and white. Let's move it up a little more. Now I'm creating stability for the cargo, because it will wobble if I do not place struts on it and keep it secure. And when it wobbles, it will come through the fairing unrealistically, and we don't want to see that. We want it to look as real as possible. So I strut it down, and it keeps it in place. It also keeps the center of gravity in one spot because it's not flopping all over the place. Had some big jumbo size fuel tanks on there. Put an adapter because the engines only go so big for their attachment points. Thought about using the other single nozzled engine, but I decided not to because the one on the bottom there had more thrust in a vacuum. So that would mean I could do more with the amount of fuel that I provided for the vessel. And these are my favorite part. The solid fuel boosters. Because they're just so explosive. And if you do something wrong, and it taps the side of your ship, it's just gonna boom! Explode. But if you put them on right, you have plenty of launch thrust. And I'm checking up there on the top there, my thrust to weight ratio, which is good. It's over 1. We always want over 1. I like to overdo it, so I have plenty of thrust. But what it's showing right now is only what's on the screen. I haven't put those on yet, because when I do, it creates another stage, like it just did, and my thrust to weight ratio wasn't good enough. It was under 1. I needed more than 1 for those to be a single stage. So I decided to go with, I tried 3 at first. Well, I put 4 on, and I went back to 3 to see what it was. But 3 wasn't enough because it only gave me 1.07, just over 1, not enough. So I put it at 4, and it gave me 1.23, and I thought, that's good enough for a good launch. I usually like to keep it around 1.5, 1.5. Put some nose cones on for aerodynamics, and strut it up so those don't wobble around and explode. Even though explosions are cool, I want to get it up in space. And here I ran into another issue. I was trying to decide where to put the, as they're called in game, launch stability enhancers. I just couldn't figure out where to put them. So I decided I'll just have to replace that strut on the bottom because it was clipping through. I didn't like it. So I decided to zoom way in through the thruster and strategically place it to where it would look straight. Took a little finesse, nothing too much though. Excuse me. Springtime, lots of allergies. Name the vessel Earthcom, because that's what it's going to be used for. And see here, I forgot to put another probe on the launch part of the vessel, because after we get the satellite off, I don't want this big old fuel tank and thruster floating around the Earth, which possibly may collide with the satellite comm array. So I put a stability module and another probe on it. So that way when we detach, we can come back to it and deorbit it. Put some batteries on it so it doesn't die midway through flight. The array itself does not need batteries because it has the solar panels and will be able to store enough when it's not in sunlight. And now I'm just hiring the crew. Went over to the Space Center, gave everybody a job. Let's fill up the crew modules. as they're called, hitchhiker storage containers. All full, and we are ready for launch. Now on the launch I did slow the time back down to 1.25 because the flights don't take as long as the building for me. Got a good steady launch there. Looks nice. Plenty of thrust. Fuel's gonna last a while to get us up into that second thinner portion of the atmosphere, so that way we can start our tilt. And what I did is I forgot to rotate the craft when I put the initial probe down, because for some reason on Kerbal Space Program, if you point down, you'll see here in a moment, if you point down without rotating the craft when you first place your cockpit or probe, it sends you off in the north. I don't want to go north, I want it to orbit east. So I had to go to the side, using the D key instead of the W key. And a very clean stage switch. Those flew off with no issue, didn't hit the vessel, which is very nice. Now we're doing our initial tilt to about 45 degrees. That's where I like to go. It gives a nice good launch into a stable orbit. Cut the fuel, see how far we're going to get. About 60,000 meters, which isn't enough, so we need to add some more fuel there. Some more thrust, keep us going. So now we're getting close to 100,000. As I like to get it above 100,000, at least 110. So that way when we get up to our apoapsis, we are able to align our ship with the prograde of where we're going, which is usually flat to the Earth, perpendicular, and you can hit the throttle and push us into orbit. And you can see me speeding up the game in the game itself there, because these flights take a while. I've had a flight take me a good 3 hours before in this game, when I was trying to figure out how interplanetary travel. When I was trying to figure out how to get from one planet to another one, I had finally figured out the right trajectory to shoot off from the planet with, to get into the orbit of the other planet and then into an orbit of that planet in one shoot. Which of course you'd fly by the planet and then have to point towards your retrograde and burn your thrusters to slow down to actually allow the planet's gravity to fully catch you into an orbit. Well, see here I did just as I said, I am parallel with the Earth itself. So we have a stable orbit now. Our high apoapsis is 332,000 meters and the low is around 100,000, which is comfortable with me. So, and I still have fuel left in the launcher. So now, one of my other favorite parts, trying to find a good camera angle here. The releasing of the comm control, or the undocking. So I switch it into docking mode, which allows me to manually control my RCS thrusters. By pressing shift, I'm able to go up. That was just sticky keys messing with me because I haven't turned it off yet on my PC. Because I have to hit shift to thrust away and I hit control to thrust down. Shift is forward, control is backwards. So now, here's where you see me having issues with the motors and the hinges and the rotors, because I had unmotorized them before launch, which was the wrong thing to do. So my hotkeys, quick select keys, the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, they weren't doing what I needed them to, and I'm sitting here thinking, what's going on? So I go back over here and I can go in there and edit them. So I look, and I need to have it say toggle motor engaged, because the motor was initially turned off. See, now they come up. And another part of this is I forgot completely to extend the pistons, because the satellite dishes are supposed to come and extend out. So I'm looking here now on my rotors, and they're not spinning. I'm like, what's going on? I keep picking the wrong things, but I eventually got it to go and spin like I wanted it to. It took me a minute. Kept hitting engage motor drive. I needed to hit toggle motor power. And there they go. Now they're spinning. And extend the solar panels. Which I decided to redo the 5 key for the solar panels because the satellite dishes are already extended and in use. And there we go. Unlimited power because of the solar panels, and throw a spin in it so the passengers can have artificial gravity. And it is good to go. Extend our airlocks for any future rendezvousing craft. And we got to get rid of that. So, this is done. Go back to our space center with the very loud birds. I had to figure out which one it was. I decided on choosing the probe because I always excuse me, I always forget to name the launch probe. So now that we got control of this, we can descend it into a deorbit. And there goes our satellite, which it always stops spinning, and I don't know why. Pew! Look at it go. It's cruising. And now we are in, I did not realize it at first, but we are already in, we're already in a trajectory to either burn up through the atmosphere, or what I tried to do here, because I noticed I had quite a bit of fuel left, which eventually ended up not being enough to save the vessel, because I was going to try to some way slow it down enough to recover it. That did not happen, as you'll see here shortly. Because we are going 2,300 meters a second. I saw it start to heat up from coming through the atmosphere, so I hit the throttle, and I hit it too much. And out of fuel, so down we go. Good thing there's nobody on it. In all honesty, I wish there were more games like this that were as intricate as Kerbal. Because Kerbal always keeps my attention very well. I can always come back to it. Swoosh. But that does it for this one. First video. I think it went very nice. Thank you for watching.